I let my son's best friend stay for dinner and stay overnight. The next morning, I found his hoodie on the floor beside my bed. My name is Dana. I'm 47, and if you asked anyone in our neighborhood, they'd tell you I've got the kind of life most women dream of. A stable marriage, a big house with a wraparound porch, 2 grown sons, a golden retriever named Hank who still thinks he's a puppy. But it's all a picture, a still frame of a life that used to move. My husband, Rick, is a good man. Solid, predictable. The kind of man who still thinks foreplay is refilling my car without telling me. We've been married for 24 years. 20 of them were happy. The last 4 have been silent. He works. I clean. We sleep in the same bed, but only because it's easier than explaining why we wouldn't. I've tried, God knows I've tried, to get us back. I wore makeup to dinner once, just to see if he'd notice. He didn't. He told me to pass the salt. I've read every book that tells women like me how to reignite the spark. Get hobbies. Take long walks. Meditate. But nothing quiets the ache that comes at night when Rick's breathing turns heavy beside me and I stare at the ceiling wondering if this is it. If this is what it means to grow old together, quietly dying inside, side by side. It started like any other Tuesday. My youngest, Tyler, is 20, home from college for spring break. He brought his best friend, Jordan, with him. I hadn't seen Jordan in years, not since high school when he'd practically lived at our house. But when he walked in that day, something inside me paused. He'd grown. Broad shoulders under a simple gray t-shirt. Clean-cut jaw, deeper voice, but still those same thoughtful eyes. He hugged me, really hugged me, not one of those limp, one-armed things most boys give adults. "You look exactly the same, Mrs. Green," he said with a smile that lingered too long. I laughed it off, but something about the way he looked at me made my skin hum. Not in a dangerous way, just noticed. Dinner was loud and chaotic. Rick was late, as usual, so it was just the boys and me. I made too much food, as I always do, and they cleared every plate like it was Thanksgiving. Afterward, they collapsed on the couch, game controllers in hand, shouting over each other. I stayed in the kitchen longer than I needed to, just watching. And that's when I caught him. Jordan, glancing over his shoulder. Not at Tyler. At me. I froze. He didn't look away. Just held my gaze, steady and quiet. And smiled. It was after 10 when the rain started. One of those spring storms that rattles the windows and soaks everything in seconds. Jordan didn't have a car, Tyler had picked him up, and he mentioned maybe calling an Uber. Before I even thought about it, I said, "Just stay here. We've got plenty of room." Tyler offered the guest room, but it was being used for storage, so Jordan ended up on the couch. Or at least, that's what was decided. I brought him a blanket, the soft gray one I keep in my reading nook. He took it from me slowly, his fingers brushing mine. "Thanks again," he said, voice lower now, like we were sharing a secret. "Of course," I said, and turned to leave. "Mrs. Green." I turned back. "You really do look the same. Actually, better." I wanted to laugh it off. Say something clever. But I just stood there, letting that strange, warm flutter spread inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The rain beat against the roof like a drumline, and all I could think about was him downstairs. The curve of his smile. The way he said my name like it mattered. I heard footsteps around midnight. I thought it was Tyler going to the kitchen, but then I heard them stop. Right outside our bedroom door. I held my breath. But they never knocked. Just silence. And then the soft creak of stairs as they went back down. The next morning, I woke early. Rick had already left for work. He never says goodbye anymore. I went downstairs expecting the usual mess of empty glasses and snack bowls. But the living room was neat. Blanket folded. Shoes lined up. Except for one thing. A hoodie. Gray. Familiar. Folded. On the floor beside the back staircase. The one that leads directly up to our bedroom. I picked it up slowly. It smelled like him. Clean, fresh, warm. And as I stood there, holding it, I heard the shower upstairs turn on. Not our shower. The guest bathroom. The one closest to my room. And then, A knock at my door. Soft. Measured. I opened it, and there he was. Still damp. Towel slung low around his hips. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Voice careful. Eyes locked on mine. I couldn't speak. He stepped closer. "Last night, did you know I was standing outside your door?" My hand still held the doorframe as I looked at him. Jordan, standing there like he belonged. Steam curled around him from the open bathroom door behind him. The towel clung low to his hips, and I hated myself for noticing how much broader he looked than the boy I remembered. But it wasn't just the way he looked. It was how he watched me. Like he already knew the storm he was stirring. "Did you?" he asked again, quieter this time. "Did you know I was outside your door?" I swallowed. My throat was dry, my heart beating loud in my chest. I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh it off. Say it was late and he must have been mistaken. But I didn't. I couldn't. I nodded. Once. Just enough to answer, not enough to admit what that meant. Jordan stepped forward. Not too close, but close enough that I felt the heat rolling off his skin. Close enough that my body forgot how to be still. "You didn't open it," he said, like he was reminding me of something I owed him. I should have shut the door then. Should have said something about boundaries, about being his best friend's mom, about how wildly inappropriate this all was. But instead, I stepped back. Just enough. "You should get dressed," I whispered, my voice cracking in the middle. He nodded, but his eyes didn't move from mine. That whole day, I was a ghost in my own house. Tyler was oblivious, thank God. He and Jordan joked like nothing had changed. But I saw it. The looks. The brush of his shoulder when he passed me. The way he said my name now. It was dangerous. It was wrong. And it was only just beginning. That night, Rick was late again. Another last-minute meeting, or maybe just a convenient excuse. I barely even listened anymore. Tyler had gone out to see a movie with some old high school friends, and Jordan stayed behind, claiming he had a paper to finish. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open, though the screen never changed. I was in the living room, pretending to read, when I felt it. That weight of someone watching. I looked up. He was standing in the doorway. "You never used to look this tired," he said, voice soft. "You used to smile more." I stared at him, not sure how to respond. "You remember things like that?" I asked. He stepped in. Closer. "I remember everything about you, Mrs. Green." I should have told him to stop, but instead I stood. He took another step. "I think about you more than I should." We stood there, suspended in the silence between us. The kitchen light flickered behind him like a warning, but I didn't back away. "You shouldn't say things like that," I said. But it didn't come out like a warning. It came out like a dare. He moved slowly, measured, until he was standing right in front of me. Then tell me to stop. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. I didn't stop him when he reached for my hand. I didn't stop him when he leaned in. I didn't stop myself either. And just like that, we crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But it wasn't what people think. It wasn't wild. It wasn't rushed. It was slow, almost reverent. Like he knew exactly what he was risking and still chose to. We didn't fall into bed. We fell into a moment. He kissed me like he had all the time in the world. He touched me like he knew I'd been starving for it. I don't know how long it lasted. Just that when it was over, neither of us said a word. He went back to the guest room. I went back to my marriage. And I cried in the shower until the water ran cold. 2 days passed. I told myself it was over, that it had been a mistake, that it hadn't meant anything. But every time he walked into the room, my body betrayed me. I didn't know Rick had noticed anything. He barely noticed when I changed the curtains, let alone the tension suffocating our house. But that morning, I came downstairs to find him sitting at the table, not drinking coffee, just staring. "Jordan's staying here a lot longer than I thought," he said, casually. I froze. Tyler asked if he could stay through the week. I lied. Rick nodded slowly. Then he turned his phone around on the table. And there it was. A pause security clip. From the camera we'd installed by the side stairwell last year after someone's car was broken into down the block. The same stairwell Jordan's hoodie had been left near. The clip was blurry, but clear enough. It showed me, opening the door, Jordan, barefoot, shirtless. He walked past me. I didn't stop him. Rick didn't say anything. He just stood, walked to the door, grabbed his keys, and left. He didn't come home that night, or the next. Tyler left to go back to school the following week. Jordan didn't say goodbye. He left before sunrise, a note folded neatly on the counter. No apology, just 6 words. You looked at me like that. Rick came back 2 weeks later. Not to talk, not to forgive, but to pack. He didn't ask questions. I didn't give answers. The last thing he said to me? You can keep the house. I'm keeping the silence. And that was it. Now, every night, I walk past that back stairwell. I see the camera, the door, the shadow of what I let in. Sometimes I wonder if he ever thinks about me, if he ever regrets what we shattered. But most nights, I just stand in the doorway and wait for a knock that never comes.